Imagine that you have two people who speak different languages. So one speaks Spanish, one speaks French. Okay? And the one says in Spanish, I love you. What does the French person hear? The French person hears nothing. So the Spanish person screams even louder, I love you, but in Spanish. And the French person feels, and then they scream back in French, I love you, how come you don't love me? And I love you. And if you scream, I love you, in the wrong language, the other person will never hear it. And that's what we see so often in relationships today, be it marriage or non-marriage relationship. Like, this isn't just a marriage thing. This is a life thing. This is like a work thing. This is like a brother-sister thing. This is a father-son, a mother-daughter. This is just this is a salesperson thing. Okay, we need to learn to speak not just what I want to say, I love you, but how does the other person hear, I love you? And there's a great verse from Sirach, chapter 33, verse 4. It says, prepare your words, and then you will be listened to. Draw upon your training and give your answer. Isn't that a great verse? Sirach, by the way, is the best book in the Bible that nobody knows about. Prepare your words, and then you will be listened to. How many of us, just this one verse alone, could change a dynamic in a relationship? Because we don't care how people hear us. We got to say what we got to say. And we're going to give them a piece of our mind, and we're going to say, and you don't know what it is that they may be hearing on the other side. The goal of this series is to focus less on what I want to say and how I want to be listened to, how I want the other person to hear me. And sometimes, in order to be heard in a different language, you have to speak a different language. And that's the point of this series. I said this last week. Our key thought in this series, if you remember, is that even though we're using the same words, we might not be speaking necessarily the same language. So let's recap. We got 4 colors up here on the screen, and these represent the 4 temperaments. And each temperament speaks its own language. Okay? The sanguine, the choleric, the phlegmatic, and the melancholic. But we'll go with yellow, red, green, and blue. Who remembers? Which of these colors speaks the language of people and fun? Those are the yellows, exactly. Which color speaks the language of power and control? Red. Those are the reds. How about perfection and order? Blue. Those are the blues. And then calm and harmony? Green. Those are our green brothers and sisters. Notice that the green was the quietest of them all. The yellow, like yellows, reds, and the greens. Calm and harmony, right on cue. Okay, exactly. I couldn't have written it any better. The point of this, okay, in case you missed last week, just a quick recap. These temperaments are hardwired into us. These are our innate, natural predispositions. It's something that we're born with. The same way some of us are born right-handed, some of us are born left-handed. Now, someone always fires back anytime we talk about this, and someone wants to say, well, but we change, and we evolve, and we grow, and we mature. And no one's saying that you don't. Just like in the same way I'm saying you may be born left-handed, but can you change and train yourself to write with your right hand? Of course. Absolutely. And that's actually the goal of life, okay, when it comes to the temperaments, is I'm naturally a certain way, but as I evolve and as I grow and as the Holy Spirit works inside me, then I want to learn how to speak different languages. You were born speaking English or whatever language you were born speaking. Can you learn French? Of course you can. But it's never going to be your native language. Same thing with the temperaments, is that each one of us, something is hardwired inside all of us. Some of us are hardwired that naturally we're more patient than others. We're more gentle than others. Some of us we're more forceful than others. Some of us are more perfectionist and more ordered than others. It's not saying that you can't be any of those things. I can't reiterate that enough. Every one of the temperaments can be a great leader, can be a great speaker, can be a great mother, can be a great father, can be great in whatever. But for some people, certain characteristics come more natural. That's all we're saying, okay? And that's actually the goal. The goal is to understand who I am, to understand my strengths, to understand my weaknesses, and the more I grow, the more I can live in my strengths and work, hopefully, on those areas where I am weak. So, like I said, today we're going to talk about, last week we talked about the language that each one speaks by nature. Today we're going to talk about the words that each one needs to hear. And I put them all up on the screen, don't worry, we're going to go through each one by one. But what we're going to see is that each of the different temperaments, there's certain words or certain kinds of words that, like Marianne said, is like oxygen to them. And when they don't get these words, they're going to act up, or they're going to be stressed, or something bad is going to happen. Like I said, I see people taking pictures. Don't worry, we're going to go through each one by one, but you're welcome to take a picture of it as well. And the reason why we're going to go through these one by one is because even the words themselves don't mean the same thing to every person. Like, for example, the word loyalty on here, okay, you see there, loyalty is under red. My definition of loyalty may be different than your definition of loyalty. Okay, the greens, you see, the greens have harmony. She's a green and I'm a red. So my definition of harmony in a marriage is no one's throwing pots and pans at the other person. Okay, so we're in harmony. We're not trying to kill each other. Her definition of harmony, what I discovered, is much greater than that. So it's not just a matter of, yeah, there's harmony. No one's trying to kill the other person. We need to understand from a green, what does harmony mean to you? And if you have a red at home, what does loyalty mean to you? A yellow, a blue, etc., etc., etc. Because the number one takeaway from this series that I hope, and I'm going to reiterate it every week, but then I'm going to move on, is that each one of us is unique. There's no one size fits all. And even within the temperaments, not all blues are the same. Not all reds are the same. Not all greens are the same. There's no such thing as one size fits all. The goal is to understand our natural predispositions and then get to understand the way that person applies them in their life. Who is the master of understanding each person's natural, innate wiring and speaking specifically to their need? Who was the master? Jesus. If you notice with Jesus never dealt with two people in the same way. Every person was unique. He knew what everyone needed to hear. He knew what the Samaritan woman needed to hear, different than the sinful woman needed to hear, different than the bleeding woman needed to hear, different than the Canaanite woman needed to hear, different than what Mary Magdalene needed to hear. Jesus was the master. If he knew all things about all men, and he spoke specifically to each one in a way that they needed to hear. And if we're honest, if we're going to be his followers, and we're going to love one another as Christ loved us, then it is our duty. Listen carefully. This is not just a fun. It's our duty. Love requires me. If I love someone, it requires me to know her and understand her so I can speak in her language. That's what love requires. If I come in this place and someone doesn't speak my language and I want to love them, it's my duty to understand how she speaks and how everyone speaks so that I can love them as Jesus taught us to love. Okay?